I'm going to call the Friday, November 21st, 2025 meeting of the Economic and Community Development Committee to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilor Kazinskas.
Present.
President Tyler.
Present.
And Councilor Heath.
Announcement of open meeting recordings. The recording is on the wall. The announcement's on the wall. Is anyone here recording the meeting other than the clerk? It's recording. Review and approval of meeting minutes. There is none. First time on the agenda. We have nothing new. In subcommittee, item 11454, a report on the investigation of the Mackey Park project. Director Stevens?
So for this, I know last I submitted and included in your packets and included in the packets for this meeting for anyone watching. First is change order number 5, which has been in front of this committee before, just for a reminder of the substantial completion of the 21st. I believe with some delay that might extend into next week. The construction of the concrete pour has already been completed for the ADA accessible ramp. I believe all they're waiting for is installation of the railings, and we're trying to kind of coordinate the best date for that given some of the colder weather that we've had. So that might go into next week or first week of December, just based off of their availability, but this contract is still to be completed in full, ready for final payment by December 12th. So we should have that park. It will be well and ready for event season for next year, by and large. Also included in packets next is just to have everything in its totality, at least in regards to the construction that's happening now. There's been a lot of misinformation kind of shared emails that I've received that I just want to make sure that are addressed. So starting off, we have the notice of violation and response from Time Bond that was issued back in 2024 following some of this early investigation into Mackey Park, the permits required, violations, and the recommendations from Time Bond, the engineering company that we have on call, and are also the lead engineers for this. So that in its totality is there. Secondly, following that, we have the design plans that include the railings, the ADA, the inclusion of the ADA accessible picnic table. Actually, the picnic table isn't on here, but it's mainly for the accessible ramp and railings, and that has been poured recently down in the concrete ramp enforcement diagram at the bottom of that page. And just to make sure that it is clear, because I know this was a problem with the last set of construction, was that there was no building permit pulled. The last inclusion is the filed building permit as of November 3rd. Construction started on November 5th, which includes the in its totality 66 linear feet of railing for 1 ramp landings and a 10-foot long section by the parking lot to match the existing railings, relocation of tables and installing a new sycamore round wheelchair accessible table with checkerboard, site prep for 1 concrete ramp and landing, including the removal of stone dust, cutting into existing retaining wall and removing subsoils, changing grades, adding processed gravel to raise grades, including labor, equipment, and materials, 228 square feet plus or minus of concrete ramp and landing form to pour concrete, striping forms, cleanup and sealing concrete, including labor, equipment, and materials, and the transplant of shrubs and associated labor there and cleanup. So that had been filed prior to construction beginning. I'm happy to say that the ramp, as I believe you're both aware and people watching are aware, the ramp as of now has been completed, and all we are waiting on is, again, the railings to be installed. I don't know if there are any questions. I would also just like to address, I know Councilor Mack had position for a complete packet to be presented for City Council. In terms of funding sources, this information here of how this project's, I would say, secondary phase came together in terms of this additional work, as well as maybe some of the earlier work on Mackey Park before my time. But I would just want to get that in its I keep saying the word totality, but I feel like that's kind of indicative of where we're heading with this project. Once the final payment is submitted. So I would just like to address that and say, you know, following the completion of this project and submission of final payment, I'd be glad to get all that documentation together and submission for City Council to address Councilor Mack's comment at the last City Council meeting. I don't know if there are any questions for me, but that's my full update on where this project currently is.
Thank you, Director Stevens. Counselor?
I think the timing lines up well. You said December 12th, you're looking for completion and payment.
For final payment, yes.
Final
yeah.
payment. Obviously weather dependent for the railing install and what have
Yep.
you, but I did see the concrete was finished. I think that'll line up well for report out at our second December City Council meeting, so I hope that's the case, and that packet that Councilor Mack requested, I think would be good to include in our packet on this item. Long journey to get here and this work. I'm seeing this response from Ty and Bond to the city on the building commissioner's report is interesting, but also seeing the plans, and it looks like the first terrace, for anybody who's watching that hasn't driven by, has a ramp now, kind of centrally located, that it still retains the tables and has ADA compliant seating and table accessibility. The slope is in compliance, and there's a report that the stone dust material on the terraces are compliant with ADA standards. So good work, Director Stevens. It's a long journey. I think in totality is a good term for the journey that you went on for this one. So I'll leave it to the chair, but I think this one's getting to be in good shape.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate your update. Thank you very much. I'd like this concise consolidation of all the important information up to this point. I think this is great, and I think Councilor Mack's request of the financial piece of it will be a good addition to this, especially once it's completed in totality. I do appreciate all of the work that you've done. You know, this is something you inherited, we've said many times in the past, and you've been nothing but transparent, complete, followed up, you know, very, very thorough in the whole process. President Tyro started with you. Thank you for the investigation again. I really appreciate that, because this is, I think, a really great example of how things work in terms of being transparent, acknowledging that there's an issue, and being completely open about how we have to acknowledge it and fix it and hope it doesn't happen in the future. And it's nice to see it coming to an end, and it's within the time frame that we had, you know, hoped for when we kind of got to a little bit of a block in the summertime, and it kind of got picked up and said, okay, we gotta try to do something different here. Really kind of stay along the same path, but I'm really glad that it's done, and we know that we're gonna get a full season next year, and we can move on. I think that's the biggest piece of it. So thank you again both for your work on this, and I'm glad that the committee was able to offer oversight and just kind of stay on top of it. But I do fully believe, just with the work that you've done in your department, that whether or not we were checking in with you, it would have gotten done anyways. I'm very, very confident about that. So thank you again. Absolutely. And I do appreciate President Tyros, your suggestion that if you can be available for our second December meeting, I think I would like this to come from the director, just because they've done so much work directly from the department. I think you've earned that to be able to present to the council, and it can be this information. I think it's, you know, we've kind of whittled it down along with if you do have the payment. And again, if this doesn't work until January, well, that's fine too, but
we should have the final payment ready by the 12th, so even though it's not gone through the city's full warrant process, it can at least be shown that it's going through processing, and it can be understood what the final cost for this additional work was.
As long as you're comfortable and you believe it's complete, because you're gonna be owning it, then I think it would be great to have you available at the meeting to give that update. Because also, if counselors have questions leading up to, as you know, our packet is published like 2 days, but you know, within 48 hours, and usually at the weekend. But in case anything comes up or some, you know, conversation or questions, I think it's a good reason for you to be there too, so this can really get closed out on a complete note. So I appreciate you being available to be able to do that. And again, President Towers, thank you for that, because I think us reporting out has gone well so far, but it'd be nice to have you there for the completion piece of it.
It was my first day, it might as well, or one of my first days, I think, I was presenting on this, so
Yep,
might as well close it out.
nice end of the year.
Nice end of the year closeout.
Exactly. That was the only item that I placed on the agenda for this meeting. Is there any other comments, questions, discussion about the item?
Can I make a motion for it?
Yeah.
To recommend that Director Stevens gives an update at our second December meeting, just in case we don't meet before then, with a report packet of the Mackey Park project for 2025 to the full council.
Second. Motion made by President Tyros, seconded by Councilor Kaczynskis. Any discussion? All those in President Tyros?
Gotcha, just a quick matter of discussion, because I think, as the chair said, the chair's given over half a dozen updates on community development to the full council, that has been very positively received, have been very thorough, and I think appreciated. This department, even though it's just one department, does a lot in our city, handles a lot of grants, projects, programs like CDBG. So while the Mackey Park project, I think, highlighted a need to talk more about the community development department, I think a side effect's that we learned a lot more about the work that the department does, and maybe we could also meet in December to talk about some of the upcoming work and keep the conversation of economic development going, now that we can kind of choose to talk less about Mackey Park, fortunately.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, President Tyros, and I do agree. I think I'll take a look, but I was thinking now that you've been fully staffed for at least a couple of months. I know that Iris is still the newest member of the department, and Amy's not far behind her, but I think we could maybe do a staffing update too, if you could have that prepared for our next meeting for this committee. And I can report out on that however we decide to proceed. I don't want to commit yet because I want to think about it, but I think at least staff-wise, if we can make that part of your November update, which will be in December, I think that'll be good. But I am glad that this committee has met pretty consistently. We've obviously gotten all of your monthly updates, which we've requested from the beginning, and it is very interesting to see how many things are in the works along the way, so I appreciate that as well. Anything else on this? Okay, so if there's nothing further, I'll just take a motion to adjourn.
Vote on.
Oh, I'm sorry, no more discussion, okay. On the motion by the president to, at our second December meeting, have Director Stevens report out on the item. No further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Anything further on
Move to adjourn.
topics of the meeting? Great. Motion made to adjourn and second by me. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.